Hi guys, so the other night I checked out Resident Evil Death Island, the latest animated movie that this franchise has suddenly coughed up. If you go back far enough on my videos list, you'll find reviews for all the Resi animated films and live action films. I've literally covered them all at some point or another. This one is set on Alcatraz, and we've got a very simple story. I mean, this could not be more paint by numbers if it tried. So there's a villain called Dylan, and he's come up with a brand new strain of the T-virus, and he plans to release it into the general population because he's evil. But luckily, we have a group of unkillable legacy characters standing by, ready to travel to the island and put paid to Dylan's evil plans just as soon as they fought their way past a horde of zombies and lickers and all the rest of it. It is a standalone tale for the most part, although there are one or two small little subplots that just creep into this from previous installments. So if you're thinking about making this your first dance with a Resi animated movie, you might want to just think about that for a minute or two. Although I'd seen all the previous ones coming into this, and even I was struggling with the lore at times and trying to remember which characters were coming into this story from which direction, and for the most part I was just trying to muddle through as best I could, just enjoy the action for what it was. This film doesn't help you though. It often throughout the runtime tells you that the characters work for different organizations with really long names, and it gets a bit frustrating at times. So for example, the movie basically says at one point, oh look, here's Leon Kennedy, he now works for the Anti-Criminal, Anti-Bio-Weapon National Subset Division 2nd Battalion 3rd Regiment of Shadowy Sulky Types Unit, 2nd Removed, or something like that. And you'll think to yourself, oh, well, that sounds good. Good for Leon. I'm not going to remember what that organisation is called 5 minutes from now, but good for him. And then a little bit further on in the movie, it'll be the same again. It'll be like, oh, look at this woman. This is Rebecca Chambers. She's a scientist. She works for the test tube division of the antiviral scientific developmental arm of the Bunsen Burner Appreciation Society. And you'll be like, oh, go Rebecca. I'm not going to remember that 5 minutes from now, but cheers. Remember the days when everybody just worked for stars and it was really simple? So what makes it more problematic is that there are a lot of mainline characters in this. You know, we don't just get Leon and Rebecca, we get Jill, we get Claire, Chris, you know, so many legacy characters in the one basket. This very much feels like the Avengers assemble of Resident Evil, but that kind of takes some of the terror out of it. For me, Resident Evil, it's meant to be just one or two characters, you know, somebody like a Claire Redfield just going through some sewers, or a power station with spiders in it, or an underground laboratory with zombies. And every now and again she might come across Chris Redfield, who's taken a break from his B plot quite close by. But essentially it'd be Claire on her own for the most part. You know, this idea of having 4 or 5 characters, each watching each other's backs in a space as small as Alcatraz, it does take some of the horror out of it for me. So I'm hoping if they make even more of these, which they probably will, the last thing I want to see come 2025 or whatever is the Resident Evil equivalent of Age of Ultron, or, you know, Resident Evil Infinity War with Wesker coming back as the big bad. It's like, no, just take it back to what it was, just 1 or 2 characters creeping around kind of a thing. Easily the best thing about this film is just the quality of the animation. It looks so crisp and sharp. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I'm quite certain that if you put this film up on a screen alongside some imagery from the very first Resi animated film from 2008, was it Degeneration, Regeneration, you'll see the difference. It's been my impression with these movies that as each one has come along, the quality of the animation has just improved every single time until you get what you get here. I mean, this is easily the best looking of the Resi animated films. Definitely not the best film overall. No. But by God, is it wonderful to look at. I was really impressed. Although one thing I've noticed is that they seem to dial down on the gore for the animated ones. I don't know if I'm the only one who's noticed that. There is gore here. It's just, it feels like the film isn't fully committing to it. It feels like they're pulling their punches somewhat. It's as if they think, It's as if they're worried that parents will come across these films on a streaming service and think, oh, look, a cartoon, I'll put that on for my 5-year-old. Something else I've noticed is that you tend to get the same ending every single time with these. Halfway through Death Island, I was predicting in my head what the ending would be, what it would look like, and I was absolutely right. Of course I was going to be right. So the type of ending I'm talking about is when, you know, the villain will be backed into a corner like a rat in a maze, and he'll think to himself, oh, it looks like I'm beaten. My plan has been foiled. I guess the only thing left to do is to take this formula and turn myself into some hideous beastie with 6 tentacles and 3 arms and razor-sharp teeth. Yeah, then I'll be able to turn the tables and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Okay. Glug, 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 glug. And then you do indeed get a fight between the resulting creature and the protagonists, but it's happened so many times now that it's just starting to get a little bit stale. I mean, the fight in this film, I feel like I've seen it like 7 or 8 times before, play out in exactly the same way. Plus, what always tickles me about these fights is that the good characters will always find like a random rocket launcher lying around in a crate, no matter where the fight is set. It could be set in a shopping mall. They'd still find a rocket launcher in a crate. In this film, they find as well a plasma gun of some description in a crate. It's like this ridiculously overpowered weapon that can just fire like particle beams into the creature just when it's looking too tough to kill, even with a rocket launcher. So yeah, I do want to see something different with the end of not just Resi films, but also Resi games as well. Just once at the end of these, I'd actually like to see the monster win, just so I can see it stand there and go, yes! But I don't actually know how to turn myself back to a human. I guess I'm going to have to stay in this lab as this horrible abomination for the end of days. Oh, now, where do I poo out of this thing? I would call myself a fan of all the characters in this film, mainly from my time of playing the games. The trouble is, when you have them all together like this, it does kind of shine a big spotlight on the fact that they are pretty much all the same character. I mean, they've all got the same morality. They would all give their lives for the cause. They've got no personal lives to speak of, no love lives. They've all got exactly the same respectful friendships towards each other. They are basically all the same. They just look different and have different names. You know, if you take Claire, Jill, Rebecca, Leon and Chris out of this movie and replace them with 5 Claire Redfields or 5 Chris Redfields, like a modder or something, it's not going to change the story that much, you know. So that's another reason why it's best to have, you know, just 1 or 2 of these characters. It just masks this problem, kind of. A character I've not mentioned yet is the henchwoman, Dylan's kind of sidekick. She was actually in one of the previous films. I just can't remember which one. She was better in whatever film she started off in. In this one, she's not much to write home about. She's just a stony-faced, cold, evil bitch with no personality. The most notable thing about her is that she wears this really tight leather suit with the zip down, presumably just to make teenage boys go, ooh. But she's just not impressive in the slightest, and Dylan's not much better. So with him, we get a backstory. It turns out that he was at the original Raccoon City incident in 1998, and he had to kill his best friend when he turned, and maybe some of his comrades as well. But this isn't the most impressive backstory. I mean, there would have been loads of survivors of the Raccoon City incident who came out of there with their own baggage and luggage to deal with. You know, Dylan's not unique on that score, so why should we feel anything for him here? What happened to him is no justification for becoming some ridiculous megalomaniac. So the whole flashback portions of the film, they just fall really flat for me in general. The only times I did get some enjoyment out of this film are mainly just the action beats, you know, when the characters are shooting zombies in the prison corridor or they're on a liquor chase. The final fight, even though it is derivative, it's still kind of fun, even though I've seen it a million times, although the area where they have the final fight is a little bit too big for me. I mean, it's like this massively gigantic area, and I'm just thinking to myself, really? This is inside Alcatraz? I don't think so. Alcatraz is really not that big a place. I've never been there, but I've seen Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood, so I know, you know, it's definitely not big enough to have like a big submarine pen like what you get in this film. It's just ridiculous. Is Dylan like Blofeld from You Only Live Twice now, just spending billions of dollars just hollowing places out and, you know, and buying up plasma rifles and things? Come on! It's time to show you my version of the film that I've got for this. Here is my Blu-ray copy of Resident Evil Death Island. It cost me £15, in all honesty. Too much, given the fact that I don't think it's that good. Unless you're somebody who owns all of these and you're desperate to get the latest one, I would probably wait until it comes down in price, in all honesty. Or, if you've got Netflix, I think it's already on there for free, if you've got a subscription. There's a few features on here, so they're all featurettes, there's no commentary. So there's something called Genesis of Death Island, Motion Capture Set Tour, Designing Death Island, Jill Valentine The Return, Voicing Death Island, The Birth of Death Island, and a design gallery. Quite a few features. I only watched the one, which was the motion capture one. I was surprised that they actually get actors to roll around doing the fights properly in a room with like these special suits on. For some reason I had it in my head that these films would just be created by people at a keyboard, just with a fancy design program, no acting required, but it just shows what I know about animation. Right, we've reached the point where it's time to get to our score, so let's get to the bag of terror. So for Resi Death Island, we've got 2 bloody axes out of 5. Without checking, I'm pretty sure this is a lower score than all the other Resi animated films would have got. So I'll leave it there for today. I'm not going to do an updated Resident Evil rankings because I think I did one about a year ago. I'm not going to do it again just for the sake of one more film. Maybe when they bring the next one out, I'll do an up-to-date rankings. Right, until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.